The Sword and the Stone, Chapter 15. It was Christmas night, the eve of the Boxing Day meet. You must remember that this was in the old merry England of Gramarye, when the rosy barons ate with their fingers and had peacocks served before them with all their tail feathers streaming, or boars' heads with the tusks stuck in again, when there was no unemployment because there were too few people to be unemployed, when the forests rang with knights walloping each other on the helm, and the unicorns in the wintry moonlight stamped with their silver feet and snorted their noble breaths of blue upon the frozen air. Such marvels were great and comfortable ones. But in the old England there was a greater marvel still. The weather behaved itself. In the spring the little flowers came out obediently in the meads, and the dew sparkled and the birds sang. In the summer it was beautifully hot for no less than 4 months, and if it did rain just enough for agricultural purposes, they managed to arrange it so that it rained while you were in bed. In the autumn the leaves flamed and rattled before the west winds, tempering their sad adieu with glory. And in the winter, which was confined by statute to 2 months, the snow lay evenly, 3 feet thick, but never turned into slush. It was Christmas night in the castle of the Forest Savage, and all around the castle the snow lay as it ought to lie. It hung heavily on the battlements, like thick icing on a very good cake, and in a few convenient places it modestly turned itself into the clearest icicles of the greatest possible length. It hung on the boughs of the forest trees in rounded lumps, even better than apple blossom, and occasionally slid off the roofs of the village when it saw the chance of falling on some amusing character and giving pleasure to all. The boys made snowballs with it, but never put stones in them to hurt each other, and the dogs, when they were taken out to scomber, bit it and rolled in it and looked surprised but delighted when they vanished into the bigger drifts. There was skating on the moat, which roared with the gliding bones which they used for skates, while hot chestnuts and spiced mead were served on the bank to all and sundry. The owls hooted, the cooks put out plenty of crumbs for the small birds, the villagers brought out their red mufflers. Sir Ector's face shone redder even than these, and reddest of all shone the cottage fires down the main street of an evening, while the winds howled outside and the old English wolves wandered about slavering in an appropriate manner, or sometimes peeping in at the keyholes with their blood-red eyes. It was Christmas night, and the proper things had been done. The whole village had come to dinner in hall. There had been boar's head and venison and pork and beef and mutton and capons, but no turkey, because this bird had not yet been invented. There had been plum pudding and snapdragon, with blue fire on the tips of one's fingers, and as much meat as anybody could drink. Sir Ector's health had been drunk with best respects, measter, or best compliments of the season, my lords and ladies, and many of them. There had been mummers to play an exciting dramatic presentation of a story in which St. George and a Saracen and a funny doctor did surprising things. Also carol singers who rendered Adeste Fidelis and I Sing of a Maiden in high clear tenor voices. After that, those children who had not been sick from their dinner played hoodman blind and other appropriate games, while the young men and maidens danced Morris dances in the middle, the tables having been cleared away. The old folks sat round the walls, holding glasses of mead in their hands, and feeling thankful that they were past such capers, hoppings, and skippings, while those children who had not been sick sat with them, and soon went to sleep, the small heads leaning against their shoulders. At the high table Sir Ector sat with his nightly guests, who had come for the morrow's hunting, smiling and nodding and drinking Burgundy or sherry sack or Malmsey wine. After a bit, silence was prayed for Sir Grummer. He stood up and sang his old school song, amid great applause, but forgot most of it, and had to make a humming noise in his mustache. Then King Pellinore was nudged to his feet, and sang bashfully, "Oh, I was born at Pellinore, in famous Lincolnshire. Full well I chased the questing beast for more than 17 year, till I took up with Sir Grummer here, in the season of the year, since when 'tis my delight, on a feather bed night, to sleep at home, my dear." "You see," explained King Pellinore, blushing, as he sat down with everybody, whacking him on the back, "old Grummer invited me home, what? After we'd been having a pleasant joust together, and since then I've been letting my beastly beast go and hang itself on the wall, what?" "Well done," they told him. "You live your own life while you've got it." William Twitty was called for, who had arrived on the previous evening, and the famous huntsman stood up with a perfectly straight face, and his crooked eye fixed upon Sir Ector, to sing, "D'ye ken William Twitty, with his jerkin so dagged? D'ye ken William Twitty, who never yet lagged? Yes, I can, William Twitty, and he ought to be gagged with his hounds and his horn in the morning. Bravo! Cried Sir Ector. Did you hear that, eh? Said he ought to be gagged, my dear feller. Blessed if I didn't think he was going to boast when he began. Splendid chaps, these huntsmen, eh? Pass Master Twitty the Malmsey, with my compliments. The boys lay curled up under the benches near the fire, Wart with Cavall in his arms. Cavall did not like the heat and the shouting and the smell of mead, and wanted to go away, but Wart held him tightly because he needed something to hug, and Cavall had to stay with him perforce, panting over a long pink tongue. Now, Ralph Passaloo. Good wold, Ralph. Who killed the cow, Ralph? Pray, silence for Master Passaloo that couldn't help it. At this the most lovely old man got up at the furthest and humblest end of the hall, as he had got up on all similar occasions for the past half-century. He was no less than 85 years of age, almost blind, almost deaf, but still able and willing and happy to quaver out the same song which he had sung for the pleasure of the forest savage since before Sir Ector was bound up in a kind of tight linen putty in his cradle. They could not hear him at the high table. He was too far away in time to be able to reach across the room. But everybody knew what the cracked voice was singing, and everybody loved it. This is what he sang. When Old King Cole was a-walking doon the street, he saw a lovely lady a-steppin' in a puddle. She a-lifted up her skeet, for to hop scorced her middle, and he saw her ankle, wasn't that a fuddle? He couldn't help it, he had to. There are about 20 verses of this song, in which Old King Cole helplessly saw more and more things that he ought not to have seen, and everybody cheered at the end of each verse until, at the conclusion, old Ralph was overwhelmed with congratulations, and sat down smiling dimly to a replenished mug of mead. It was now Sir Ector's turn to wind up the proceedings. He stood up importantly and delivered the following speech. Friends, tenants, and otherwise, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. There was a faint cheer at this, for everybody recognized the speech which Sir Ector had made for the last 20 years, and welcomed it like a brother. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, it is my pleasant duty, I might say my very pleasant duty, to welcome all and sundry to this our homely feast. It has been a good year, and I say it without fear of contradiction, in pasture and plough. We all know how Crumbach, a forest savage, won the first prize at Cardoyle Cattle Show for the second time, and one more year will win the cup outright. More power to the forest savage. As we sit down tonight, I notice some faces now gone from among us, and some which have added to the family circle. Such matters are in the hands of an almighty providence, to which we all feel thankful. We ourselves have been first created and then spared to enjoy the rejoicings of this pleasant evening. I think we are all grateful for the blessings which have been showered upon us. Tonight we welcome in our midst the famous King Pellinore, whose labors in ridding our forest of the redoubtable Questing Beast are known to all. God bless King Pellinore. Hear, hear. Also Sir Grummer Grummersome, a sportsman, though I say it to his face, who will stick to his mount as long as his quest will stand up in front of him. Hooray! Finally, last but not least, we are honored by a visit from His Majesty's most famous huntsman, Master William Twitty, who will, I feel sure, show us such sport tomorrow that we will rub our eyes and wish that a royal pack of hounds could always be hunting in the forest, which we all love so well. View halloo! And several retreats blown in imitation. Thank you, my dear friends, for your spontaneous welcome to these gentlemen. They will, I know, accept it in the true and warm-hearted spirit in which it is offered. And now it is time that I should bring my brief remarks to a close. Another year has almost sped, and it is time that we should be looking forward to the challenge in future. What about the cattle show next year? Friends, I can only wish you a very Merry Christmas. And after Father Sidebottom has said our grace for us, we shall conclude with the singing of the national anthem. The cheers which broke out at the end of Sir Ector's speech were only just prevented, by several hushes, from drowning the last part of the vicar's grace in Latin, and then everybody stood up loyally in the firelight and sang, God save King Pendragon, may his reign long drag on, God save the king. Send him most glorious, great and uproarious, horrible and horious, God save our king. The last notes died away, the hall emptied of its rejoicing humanity. Lanterns flickered outside, in the village street, as everybody went home in bands for fear of the moonlight wolves, and the castle of the forest savage slept peacefully and lightless in the strange silence of the holy snow.